Hello, 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 and welcome to the first episode of What Sharon Said. Before I go any further, I'd be grateful if someone can confirm that they're hearing me live on YouTube and on LinkedIn. I just want to make sure. Yes, exactly. Yes, thank you so much. I can tell that I'm live on LinkedIn. I hope I'm also live on YouTube. Let's see. All right. Okay, so let's get started. So, for the benefit of the few people who don't know me, I think I'm among friends at the moment. And for those on Team Replay, I'm just going to introduce myself. I'm Sharon Hurley Hall, author of I'm Tired of Racism, founder of the Share Anti-Racism community and Sharon's Anti-Racism newsletter, activist, educator, author. And part of the reason that I am doing this, there are a number of reasons. One is, as I often say, we are not monoliths. We have opinions about a lot of things. We have things to say about a lot of things. And I wanted a different place to talk to you all about things that may not fit inside the usual remit, right? And so that's part of the reason for having these three pillars, right? I'm a bit of a polymath, or what they used to call a multi-potentialite. So I'm thinking of this as life is whatever comes into my head. Learning is about things I've learned and courses I teach. And anti-racism, I don't necessarily want to talk about the same things that are in the newsletter and the share community, but there might be an overlap, not going to lie. When I originally came up with the concept of this show, that was before the the US election result. And I thought, well, maybe, there'll be other things to talk about. But the truth is, in the moment we are in, I'm probably going to end up talking about a whole bunch of stuff. So I'm going to look briefly at the chat before I get into it some more. Thank you for confirming that I can be heard on LinkedIn. Linda, really, really good. Um, and, welcome Lisa, Joe, Linda, Asmara, and Joe. Really good to see you here. So one of the one of the questions that has sort of come to me as I've been thinking about this is, in this moment, how do I show up and build on the work that I've been doing in the past nearly 5 years? And also, not gonna lie, it's about facing my fears and doing the damn thing and getting out there on video, which, as I mentioned this morning, is the most unintroverted thing ever. So, I am. That's why we're here. Hey, Suan, good to see you. Really happy that you've been able to join. So, as always with me, those of you who have known me for a while know that I like to experiment and test things out. And so what Sharon said is an experiment, but I'm intending that it's going to run for at least the rest of this year, a couple of times a month. So I don't have a regular slot yet. I'm going to start here. And I'm estimating it at 15 to 30 minutes, depending on guests, because I'm an introvert. And, got to manage that energy. So yeah, drop your comments as you think of them, and let's let's dive in. I'm thinking this is going to be kind of a magazine format where I will share things on different aspects of what is going on and answer questions and respond to comments and eventually have some guests to share the mic. Thank you, Drew. I appreciate the validation. Um, And Linda, I saw that I was in your featured video this morning, so I will be following that channel as soon as I am done with this, in fact. So yes, this is where we are. So here is what is on my mind today. Um, but before I get to that, I just want to say that one of the things, some of you may have noticed that I'm getting a little spicier, a little more direct. And so there is also a space for that. So what's on my mind today is free is cancelled, with thanks, of course, to my sister Lisa Hurley, who was one of the first to say this, right? It is since the dawn of my time on the internet, and that goes back quite a while, I have shared a lot of free information. There are a few of you who know me from back in the day where I ran a blog called Get Paid to Write Online, which was talking about freelance life and how to make the best of it. It was a writing advice blog, and you can still see a few of the evergreen pieces on my Sharon Unlimited newsletter and on Medium. So, I post several times a week on social media, as you know. 60% of my newsletter content is free to read, and yet, there are always people who want more. There are always people who ask for more, right? And I think people need to get over this idea. They want more from Black people. They want more from people of the global majority. They want more, especially from Black women. And somewhere in the back of their minds is this idea that we owe free or cheap labor. And I would like people to get over that idea. I have to say, I would like people to get over that idea. And here's why, apart from the fact that it is just extractive and wrong. For me, certainly, when I talk about um, racism, you're getting 5 decades of lived expertise. Thank you, Gillian Marcel, for that phrasing, with academic credentials as well. When I talk about writing and content, that's 4 decades of experience. Yes, yes, I'm getting old. That has value. I don't know about anyone else, but I am done running on fumes for the benefit of others. So I will drop the link to Erin Corinne Johnson's excellent post on this later for more on this. So let us see what we've got here. Thank you, Linda. I'm glad to see Linda Ju Taryn talking about loving the spicy hot take. Um, and you know what I've realized as well, which is not this is not news to me. When I was in high school, they always used to say, Sharon, expand, expand. But sometimes I love a little concise two-liner, right? A little one paragraph hot take, right? So yeah, I think one, and I say this on behalf of all the activists out there, and I think I could speak for them on this. Pay us, right? Value the stuff that is valuable. Value the education that you're getting. Support our work, right? Support our work with money that we can actually pay bills with and buy ease with, right? Does not mean that I'm going to stop doing the things that I already do for free that I've committed to. I'm always going to make sure, because anti-racism education is important, that some of the content is available for free. I'm going to do things like this show. I do pro bono things when I choose to. But, I'm increasingly leading into the idea that, what I do, the knowledge I have, the expertise I have has value and should be valued and compensated accordingly. And I know that I am not the only one that feels this way. Here we are in 2025, after a long 5 years, with all the rollbacks and the pushbacks and the dancing around saying the N word by calling it DEI, right? The scapegoating, the the rollbacks of protections for the people that most need protection, which are going to hurt everybody, in case anybody hasn't realized that yet, right? Here we are in this moment, and we're still out there. We're still out here doing what we know we have to do, giving that education. There are people on this call that have been advocating for their communities for 5 years, maybe even for longer than 5 years, maybe even for longer than I knew them. They deserve your support. Support them, support us. Okay? This is important. This is very, very important. Okay? And I'm glad to see people are talking about this in the chat. Linda, I love this. Let me see. I should be able to show this comment. People always used to tell me I was shy as a kid. It is tact not to say everything that's on your mind. And if you want my opinion, pay me for it. Yes, because one of the things I used to say is that not everything that comes into my brain has to come out of my mouth. Um, and even though I've got spicier, there are times that I'm going to sit back and I'm going to think about something before I actually say anything. I consider that a favor to both myself and others. Oh my gosh. Okay. So let's go on. All right. So the other thing that's on my mind today is leaning into introversion, but also one of the things that has been really annoying me as I have been looking into creating something to support introverts is this idea that introversion is something to be got over, that is something that, you solve it by becoming more extroverted or learning to fake extroversion. I think that's wrong, right? I mean, if you had asked me 5 years ago, doing this show is the last thing that I would have thought of doing. But, I also would not have thought of doing a podcast as Lisa and I did, appearing on podcasts, speaking at events, leading training for corporates. There's a bunch of things I wouldn't have thought of doing. In fact, one of the stories I often tell is that when I did my first lecture at a university in back in 2000, my hands were clamped firmly to the podium because my knees were knocking. I was shaking inside, and I gabbled through the whole thing. And I thought, boy, have I made a really bad decision doing this? But I'll tell you, that was the first bit of me realizing that I could show up in public and talk about stuff, and I'd be okay afterwards. Yes, I might need to lie down in a dark room for a good while, but I would still be okay afterwards. So, I want to say that even for those of us who are introverted, it is possible for us to do things like this. Because we have things to say, we have perspectives, and who's to say that people who are used to quiet reflection aren't people that you need to listen to? As I always say about all of these things, it takes all of us. Okay, so switching to something a little different. um, I have some watch and read recommendations, one of each. A book that I read recently, recommended by my lovely daughter, was Babel by R.F. Kuang, who is known right now as the author of Yellowface. And it's a historical fantasy book set in Oxford. And I love it because it draws on real history. I spent a lot of time going through and saying, oh, did this really happen? Did this really happen? And in many cases it did, but has a little fantasy element tied in with the use of language. But what I love about it especially is that it is multi-layered. It's in addition to the history, in addition to the fantasy, there's a whole thread running through it, questioning the colonial project while being a really good read. So definitely this author has moved to the top of my list of people whose books I want to read. I am about to read something called The Poppy Wars, and then eventually guess I will get to Yellowface, and I know that there's a new book coming out this year. Also, um, I want to mention 6888, which is on Netflix, about the battalion of Black women who kept the mail going during World War II. I had not known about this, and honestly, it was a joy. It was a joy to watch it, and an education, which I love learning, so that is also always a good thing. All right, that's interesting. I see a comment from Taryn here saying that um, testing that we evolve over time. First result was that she's introverted, and second one more introverted. They're introverted, sorry. And I also, let me take those off. Ugh. All right, good. I have always been introverted by every single test that I have done. And in fact, in spite of the fact that I show up in public more, I have not got less introverted in the testing, which is very, very interesting. Um, but it's fine. It's something that I appreciated learning about myself because when I was a kid, nobody was talking about introversion. They were just asking why I wasn't participating in things. But it is good for me to know that this is the case. And so I know that whenever I do an event, whenever I am out, I need to give myself that time to recover afterwards. And that allows me to do pretty much anything I want, just as long as I build that in. Okay, so we are winding down now. And okay, let me let me go back to because I we talked about life learning and anti-racism as key topics. So I one of the things that I've been asking myself, and I know many of you asking yourselves too, is what is my responsibility in this moment as an anti-racism author and activist, as a human being who cares about the well-being of other human beings, who wants everyone to thrive, and who knows that, as Fannie Lou Hamer said, nobody's free till everybody's free. Okay? So I started this year as I ended it. Since the US election result, I have reaffirmed my commitment to anti-racism work, and I've begun a gentle exploration in some of the communities I'm in of how we could come together to do something meaningful and to support each other. It really is gentle, as many of us are working on many fronts, but it is something that I believe is important because we can't do this alone, right? Yes, we can't do this alone. And I think it's very important for us not to expect to. So the other question I've been asking myself is how can I continue what I've started with the newsletter and make it a platform for the voices that often go unheard? And I do hope to have an announcement soon about someone who will be making a regular contribution in the coming year, which is something that I hope to expand in the future. But, and as always, I start with one and then move from there. So really, it's about how can we stay the course? How can we support each other? And yeah, so that is kind of where we are. I hope in the future that I will have some guests. But in the meantime, I am open to questions. If there's something you want my take on, drop a question in the chat. Um, and, I look forward to engaging with you in this different way. And hopefully by the end of 2025, feeling as comfortable on video as I do in other media. So I hope you're going to join me for this ride. Um, I hope in a couple of weeks, I'm going to drop a plan for the upcoming topics. I have a few ideas for maybe the next 3 or 4 of these. And as I said, things evolve. And, right now things are happening quickly. One of the things that I want to say is that, the powers that be, the very malign and slightly unhinged powers that be want us to be distracted and off center. That's why they keep throwing things out there. But we don't have to be distracted. We can do the work that we know we have to do. We can keep going. Um, we can push back on many fronts, and we also know that we're not doing it alone. And that is how we play and win the long game. So with that, I'll see, are there any final comments or questions? And if not, I think we are pretty much there, right? So thank you so much for joining me for this launch episode, and I will see you in all the online spaces next time. And I'm out. Thank you.